Ever wondered how to use active record callbacks in Ruby on Rails efficiently? Well, you're not alone. Now don't let the names scare you off. These aren't callbacks from a disgruntled ex. Rather, they're a powerful tool waiting to be harnessed. Active record callbacks are essentially methods that get called at certain moments in an object's lifecycle. Picture them like the stagehands in a theatre production. They're behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smoothly at key moments. They set the stage, tidy up after, and sometimes even step in to save the day when things go awry. But why, you might ask, are they so important? Well, they bring order to the chaos. They ensure that certain actions happen before or after changes to an object. They are the heroes preventing you from pulling out your hair in frustration. Let's say, for instance, you have a user model. When a new user signs up, you want to send a welcome email. You could put this in your controller, but what happens when you have to create users from different places in your app? You're going to end up with code duplication, my friend. And in the world of coding, that's akin to wearing socks with sandals, a major faux pas. By using a callback, you can ensure this email gets sent every time a new user is saved to the database, no matter where in your app this happens. It's like having your own personal butler, taking care of business without you having to lift a finger. But how do we use them efficiently? Well, before we dive in, remember, with great power comes great responsibility. When it comes to using active record callbacks in Ruby on Rails, we're talking about a tool with immense power. It's like being handed the keys to a shiny new sports car. It's thrilling, it's exciting, but get too carried away, and you might just find yourself wrapped around a proverbial tree. So, let's start at the beginning. What are active record callbacks? In layman's terms, they are hooks into the life cycle of an object that allow you to trigger logic before or after an alteration of the object state. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? Well, it is, but it's also a double-edged sword. Use it wisely, and you'll be hailed as a hero. Use it recklessly, and you might end up the villain of your own story. Now, let's talk about efficiency. When it comes to using callbacks, you want to keep things simple. Think of it as being a minimalist. You don't want to clutter your callbacks with complicated logic that makes your code harder to read and understand. Instead, strive for simplicity. Keep your callback functions small and easy to understand. Remember, cluttered code is like a cluttered room. It's hard to find what you're looking for, and it's easy to trip over something unexpected. Furthermore, keeping your callback functions small not only maintains readability, but it also helps to prevent unexpected behavior. You see, when you pile on the logic, it becomes harder to predict how your code will behave. It's like trying to juggle too many balls at once. Eventually, one is going to drop. So, in the grand scheme of things, efficient use of active record callbacks isn't about showing off how complex you can make your code. It's about simplicity, readability, and predictability. It's about driving that shiny new sports car with care and precision, not speed and recklessness. Remember, folks, the key here is simplicity. Don't let the power go to your head. You know what they say about repetition? It's the mother of all inefficiency. There's a principle in software development that goes by the acronym DRY. It stands for Don't Repeat Yourself. Now, don't confuse this with being lazy. It's not about avoiding work. It's about making your work more efficient, more maintainable, and less prone to errors. Let's put this into the context of using active record callbacks. When you're writing code, it's easy to fall into the trap of repeating the same logic in multiple callbacks. This is like telling the same joke at every party you go to. Sure, it might get a laugh the first time, but after a while, people are going to start avoiding you. And you don't want your code to be that guy, do you? The DRY principle encourages you to extract that common logic and put it in a method that can be called from other parts of your code. This way, when you need to make a change, you only have to do it in one place. But remember, as with everything in life, there's a balance to be struck. Overzealous application of the DRY principle can lead to overly abstract code that's hard to understand and maintain. It's like trying to tell a joke in 5 different languages at the same time. Sure, it's impressive, but it's also confusing and not very effective. So here's the takeaway. Use the DRY principle wisely. Extract common logic into methods, avoid repetition where it makes sense, but also understand when it's okay to repeat yourself. After all, some jokes are worth telling twice. So keep it dry, folks. Your code will thank you. All right, so you've kept it simple and dry, but how does it stand the test of time? Well, dear listeners, the answer is as timeless as the question itself. Testing. Yes, testing your callbacks is as crucial as making them. It's like going on a date with your code. You wouldn't want to go out with something that doesn't work as expected, would you? So, why are we testing our callbacks? Simple. To ensure they're behaving as expected. Think of it as a friendly interrogation. You're asking your code, hey, are you doing what you're supposed to do? And if the answer is anything less than a resounding yes, there's a problem. Now, how do we write these tests? By simulating the conditions under which the callback should be triggered, and then confirming that the desired outcome has indeed occurred. For instance, if you have a callback that sends an email when a user signs up, you'd create a test user, sign them up, and then check to see if the email was sent. Just remember, you're not just testing the callbacks themselves, you're testing the entire process. So, if your email sending callback depends on a user being saved to the database, your test needs to account for that too. But you might be thinking, oh, testing sounds like a lot of extra work, and sure, it can be. But consider the alternative, a broken application, angry users, and a very stressful day at the office. Suddenly, writing a few tests doesn't seem so bad, does it? This is the reality of developing software. It's not just about writing the code, it's about ensuring it works as expected today, tomorrow, and for the foreseeable future. So, when you're writing your callbacks, make sure you're also writing tests for them. Unless you want to face the wrath of a broken application. Because, as we all know, the only thing worse than a broken heart is a broken application. Now, let's wrap this up with some golden rules. Firstly, when it comes to active record callbacks, remember less is often more. It may be tempting to pile on the callbacks for every model, but that's like pouring too much gravy on your roast. It might seem like a good idea at the time, but you'll soon regret it when your code becomes a sodden, unmanageable mess. Stick to using callbacks for key model lifecycle events like creating, updating, or deleting records. Next, we've got our old friend dry, or don't repeat yourself. It's a principle as old as time, and it applies just as much to callbacks as it does to any other part of your code. If you find yourself writing the same callback code for different models, it's time to take a step back, have a cup of tea, and think about how you can abstract that functionality into a separate method or even a different class. And let's not forget about testing. Yes, I can hear your collective groans, but it's a crucial part of using callbacks efficiently. Without proper testing, you might as well be coding blindfolded. And while that might impress your friends at parties, it's not going to do you any favors when you're trying to debug a complex application. So, test your callbacks thoroughly, make sure they're doing what you expect, and handle any unexpected behavior gracefully. Lastly, keep it simple. If your callbacks are starting to look like a Jackson Pollock painting, it might be time to consider a different approach. Remember, the goal is to make your code more efficient, not to create a tangled web of callbacks that only you can decipher. So there you have it, folks. Less is more. Keep it dry, test, 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 and keep it simple. These are the keys to using Active Record Callbacks efficiently. Until next time, keep coding.